an impression and an impact. If a firecracker go off over there in that corner, that's an impression. But if Russia dropped a nuclear bomb, some people only make an impression, whereas there are others who make an impact. Shirley Chisholm made an impact. Daisy Bates made an impact. Helen Keller made an impact. Barbara Joy made an impact. Phoebe Salome, Priscilla Carter made an impact. Coretta Scott King, Rosie Parks. If I could get somebody to get they made an impact. Tex Anna Green made an impact. In Red Rock, a woman named Mary Hawley made an impact. There's a woman in Lakewater, Ella Grace Derrick. In my opinion, she made an impact.
Real good.
Maysola Pouncey Calhoun made an impact. Is it something? Rosie Parks. She said, some folks think it's not a big deal, but isn't it something? It took a woman to sit down to get a nation to stand up. Y'all helping me over here, y'all quiet that. Touch somebody and tell them you ought to want to make an impact.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus says this is not an ordinary woman who makes an impression, but a woman of class makes an impact. A woman of respectability makes an impact. A woman who stands for something. If you don't stand for something, you are called for anything. You ought to want to live your life where you make an impact. God has blessed our dear sister. 85 years. What a blessing. 85 years. You know, sometimes I tell people that your life and my life are like the quarters of a football game. From 1 to 18, that's your first quarter. 19 to 34 is your second quarter. Age 35, you at halftime. Some of y'all talking about you're 60 and you're middle-aged. No, you're not. 35 is halftime. 36 to 52 is the third quarter. 53 to age 70 is the fourth quarter. And whenever you're over 70, you're in overtime. I wish I would touch somebody and tell them help the man too. You know, I understand you dropping the ball in the first quarter. I can understand you're shaking it fast and watch yourself and show me what you're working with in the second quarter. But when you get in the fourth quarter, you ought to get some somewhere and sit down. Anybody in overtime, raise your hand if you're over 70 and give God a mighty hand clap of praise.
That's all right,
Come on, 85 years. God blessed us to see overtime. Well, I can't hold you long. And been preaching a long time. And those of you who know me and who've been watching me, you know when I close my Bible, I'm about ready to come home. I was hearing a preacher the other day, and he kept saying I'm coming in, and 30 minutes went by. I wanted to say, Negro, please sit down. Kept talking. And I closed my Bible off the pouncey. I'm not ready to come in. So my closing point is, preacher, why did Jesus put the spotlight on this one? Why should we draw a line of existential connotation? I feel like preaching on this one. Why should we take a highlighter and highlight these two words, this one? The answer is this. We recognize this woman not because of what she did, but we recognize this woman based on why she did what she did. Man looks at your motion, but God looks at your motives. And now I understand why he said this woman, because man looks at the heart, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And the reason why Jesus said that we ought to look at this woman, he was looking at the motives of why she did what she did. Let me stop and say, you need to check your motives. You know, we will be judged not for what we do and don't do, but the reason why we do what we do and don't do what we do not. Now, you know, in the Baptist church, unless you're guilty of the 3 sins, you're all right. And the Baptist church have 3 sins. I don't drink, I don't gamble, and I don't run women. Since we liberated, don't run me. But now you ought to look at the motives of why you don't do what you don't do. Some folk don't drink because they got a bad liver. And some folk don't gamble because you can't get a lottery ticket with a food stamp. And some folk don't run women because if you caught one, you couldn't do nothing with her once you caught. God looks at the motive of why we do what we do. what we don't do. Now, when Jesus said, this woman, there were three things that motivated this woman. Well, this woman, she did what she did because it was selfless. She did what she did because it was sacrificial. She did what she did in silence. And she did what she did because it was sacred. Well, let us leave the woman in the scripture and let us look at this woman. Yeah, she did what she did. It was selfless. In inertia, selfless. Working with the Sunday school, selfless. Helping the children, selfless. Tending to the elderly, selfless. Driving people to the doctor, selfless. Helping kids get their lesson, selfless. What she did was selfless. And then what she did was sacrificial. The sacrifice that she made for the Palestinian community. The sacrifices that she made for this county. The sacrifices that she made with her husband. The sacrifices that she made feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, being a listening ear for somebody who needed a shoulder to lean on. What she did was sacrificial. But then thirdly, it was done in silence. If you know the Doris that I know, she stood in the background. She wasn't up front. She didn't have to have a name on the program. She wasn't out in the front, and she wasn't out in the public. She didn't do what she did for recognition. She would stand there with a smile on her face and the joy of Jesus in her heart. Well, yes, but then finally she did what she did. It was a sacred thing. Oh, brothers and sisters, we have come, yes, to a junction in time where so many people don't hold anything sacred. But when I used to come to church, the church house was a sacred place. The children didn't run up and down the aisle. Gonna make somebody mad. Because the church house was a sacred place. The pulpit was a sacred place. The songs that we sung in the church was not boogie woogie. It was sacred songs.